Hello and welcome to the Patience to Prosperity podcast, where we learn how to act in opposition of our limiting beliefs in order to reach our fullest potential. I just want to start off today's episode by kind of explaining the season that we're in, because last week, the first episode of season 3, the season of the mountains. And if you want to go listen to that episode and then come back to this one, we talked a lot about everything diet culture, body image issues, relationship with food and exercise. Me and my friend Wanda sat on the mic and really just got into a lot of details with everything related to body image issues. So we talked about things like guilt and shame. We talked about our own personal experiences and where it stemmed from. We'll give you tangible steps to implement in your journey of healing. And it's just a really, really good episode that I hold very close to my heart, because it's with someone that is also so special and such a powerful light. So go check that episode out if you haven't already. But needless to say, season of the mountains. I grew up in Connecticut. That's where I am right now for the summer, because I go to school in Virginia. And growing up in Connecticut, I obviously wasn't surrounded by mountains. You know, I had your typical northeastern lifestyle, and I was blessed enough to, be around the ocean, and that was such a cool experience growing up with that, but I never experienced what the mountains were like. So going to Virginia and living in a place where, I would be walking to class and there were just mountains surrounding me, it was a feeling that I don't even think I was prepared for. The mountains truly ground me in a way that nothing else can. I just feel so protected when I'm around the mountains. They constantly remind me to just take a few breaths, to just be present, that nothing is that serious. And, you see these huge mountains, and when you're looking at them, obviously from far away, they seem so much smaller, but then I'll go on these hikes and I'll get to the top of them, and then everything else below me is smaller. And I just get this feeling that there's something that's always surrounding me that's so much bigger than me. Yeah, when I look at a mountain, it doesn't belittle me. It doesn't make me feel insignificant. It actually does the opposite. It makes me feel so empowered. It makes me feel like I have something to give to the world, and that my uniqueness is something special, just like every mountain is different. And, like when we draw mountains, sometimes we just typically will draw a triangle. When in reality, if you actually look at a mountain, it's all different shapes and sizes, and there's no straight lines really. It's all rigid, and everything is different when you look at it, and there's so many layers to it. And I think there's so much to learn from the mountains. That's why I'm just really excited about this season, because another thing I think about when I think about the mountains is how we often look at mountains as obstacles, right? Like, usually, metaphorically speaking, a mountain is an obstacle in your life. And when you get to the top, that's when you get to that prosperity. I think that it was kind of a no-brainer to make this season about the mountains, because it's inevitable that throughout your healing journey, no matter if you take all of my advice and you implement all the tips that I tell you guys in every episode, and you try your best every single day to change your mindset, inevitably hardships are going to happen in your life. Challenges are going to come up that you might not feel prepared for, but this season is here to remind you that you would not be given the challenge. This challenge would not rise if you were not ready for it, if you were not prepared for it, because you have everything that you need inside of you. Whether you know that now or not, this season is going to help you find that power within you. We're going to talk about so many different concepts that come up when you're healing, and even when you feel so healed. Like, I'm in a place right now where I feel the most healed that I ever have been in my life, but that doesn't mean that there aren't days where I feel like I'm just taking 5 steps back when I thought I was taking 5 steps forward. And that's what this season really means to me. It's not just about overcoming these obstacles, but it's being able to recognize them before they even come in. Being able to set yourself up so good that you already know that when you do one thing, it's going to set off a spark that leads you to procrastinate, that leads you to feel like you're losing progress, feel like you are in a funk, whatever it is. Those are all episodes and all concepts that I will cover this season that I'm really excited to dive into. And I just really think that this season will resonate with so many people because it's obstacles that all of us go through, but when you're in the midst of healing, it can feel so individual because it is, because everyone's healing experience is different and very individualized. But at the same time, the obstacles that you're facing, you feel like you're the only person going through them, when in reality, everyone feels that way at a certain point. Maybe not at the same time as you, obviously, because all of our lives are different and all of our healing journeys are different, but inevitably, everything that I talk about in this season are going to be things that you either have felt or will feel in the future. So, with that being said, we're going to jump into the concept of today's episode, which is self-sabotage. First, I'm just going to kind of identify what self-sabotaging really is. So, in my own words, self-sabotaging is when you act in opposition of what your highest self looks like. When you are consciously making decisions that don't align with who you are trying to be. So, for example, if you have a goal in mind that you want to read a book a month, and when you have time in your day after work, when you're winding down and you already had dinner and you already showered and now is your me time, instead you choose to go play a video game or watch a movie instead of reading, you are choosing to act in opposition of what you actually want to be, right? Because you told yourself that you want to read a book a month. So then the end of the month rolls around and you've only got halfway through this book. Now you feel like shit about yourself because you set a goal for yourself and you know that you had some time to read for 10 minutes a day. And instead of taking those 10 minutes, you decided to scroll on TikTok. That's gonna make you feel really guilty and shameful about yourself. You're gonna feel like you are not capable of reaching your goals and like you are the reason why you're not reaching your goals, which I think is so much harder to accept when you are the reason holding you back rather than something outside of you is holding you back. So with that being said, I kind of want to touch on some reasons why we self-sabotage, because you think about it and it's like, okay, but why the hell am I not doing the things that I know I should be doing? Like, I know what I need to do to reach this goal. I know what I need to do to become the person that I want to be. So why am I doing everything else other than what I should be doing, right? So I think one of the reasons why we self-sabotage is because we genuinely believe that we are not deserving of the outcome that we are working towards. And I don't think the example of reading books is one that applies to this specific reason, but in some ways, I feel like we're our biggest critic a lot of the times in our life. We don't really know how much we deserve sometimes. When you don't know your worth, you don't know what you deserve. And when you're in the midst of healing, you're also in the midst of trying to figure out your worth, trying to figure out what you deserve and what you should not tolerate by any means. And I think that it's really hard sometimes when you are trying to work towards a bigger goal that seems so out of reach, because oftentimes when we're setting a goal for ourselves, it's a pretty big one that we're not used to attaining by any means in this life, and we don't set tangible steps to reach that goal. We just set this goal and kind of throw everything at the fire and just hope that it sticks, but at the same time, you have to actually make tangible steps for yourself in order to reach a goal and break it down so incredibly small to the point where you feel like you're accomplishing something even when it's taking you 2 minutes to do something, because you know that it's still providing you towards your goal. It's still going to take you where you need to go, even if it's a small step. that's another concept that I will cover this season, is kind of, taking pride for your accomplishments, because that's something that I've struggled with my entire life, and it's something that I feel like I am going through and honing in on the most right now in my healing journey, is that. So that's something that I'll cover later down the line, and stay tuned for that. But going back to the reason why we self-sabotage, being not truly deserving the outcome we're working towards, I think this starts with kind of, asking yourself why you don't feel like you deserve this goal. Do you think that you're not doing enough? Is it because you don't actually want the outcome that you think you do, and you need to reassess your goal? What is it that is holding you back right now? So that leads me to my second point of why we self-sabotage. And these are just a few reasons. There's so many things that can go into it, but these are just a few that pop up in the forefront of my mind. But my second reason why I think we self-sabotage is because we're afraid of change. No matter if that change is something that we want so badly for ourselves in our life, change inevitably in its nature is something that is scary to us. In our human nature, it is scary to us because we're not used to it. It's not familiar. And anything that isn't familiar to us is uncomfortable to endure. So if you have a goal of really putting yourself out there in this coming school year, in this coming work year, whatever it is, whatever part of your journey you're in right now in your life, if you have a goal to put yourself out there and to start meeting new people, start opening up to more people and showing your true sides, being more authentic, say this is something that you're really trying to work on right now, it can be so incredibly scary to jump into being a person who considers yourself more introverted, really takes your alone time very seriously. It's really scary for you to just start conversation with a stranger when you're out and about, and to, really put yourself out there and show your true personality. If that's something that's hard for you, then of course it's going to be scary for you to jump into this whole nother world of putting yourself out there and showing the world your authentic self. Because when you are so used to being this introverted person for so long, you don't even really know who your authentic self is. You know who you are behind closed doors, but you don't know who you are when you are socializing with other people, when you're talking to strangers, when you're meeting people for the first time. That's not really who you are yet. The perception of you that you know in the past that meets people for the first time and feels really scared and feels like you can't be yourself because that's too much to show the first time you meet someone, and that's going to scare people away. That's not who you are. That is a version of yourself that was holding you back this entire time because you weren't ready to embody your full authentic self. So of course, in the future, if you're making this goal that you want to embody this now more when you meet people for the first time, that's going to be something that is so scary to you because you have attached that belief from your past that it's frightening to show who you truly are to someone when you meet them for the first time. This is when our past kind of comes in and haunts us, right? This is when we attach to old versions of ourselves that no longer serve us. But this is not to blame ourselves. This is not to shame ourselves into trying to become someone else. Because like I said in the first episode of this season, you can never shame yourself into someone you love. You can only love yourself into evolution. Being afraid of change is a way of self-sabotaging yourself, because the only way that you will change, the only way that you will reach your highest self is if you push yourself out of your comfort zone. And I will say that, and I will hone in on this so many times in this podcast, because I genuinely believe that the only way to transform yourself, to transform your mind and your life and your intentions and your energy, is to step out of your comfort zone. Because when we think of our comfort zone, the first word we think of obviously is comfort, right? It's something that we feel safe in. But that doesn't mean that it's serving us. Just because it's comfortable doesn't mean that it's meant for us. It just means that it's familiar. So obviously, we're not going to get out of this place if there's nothing pushing us to get out of this place. So that's where this self-sabotage comes in. We think just because it's familiar, we don't have to change anything about it. But that doesn't mean it's working for us anymore. So another way we self-sabotage is when we're not confident in our ability to sustain whatever work we're doing. So if you go into something, say you are making it a goal that you want to start working out 4 days a week, but you're someone who does not work out regularly to begin with. Let me start by saying you are self-sabotaging yourself by making a goal that is already kind of unsustainable, kind of unrealistic for you to reach. And that's why it's so imperative when trying to change something, when trying to embody a new habit, a new goal. It is so imperative to look at what you're doing right now. Look at what your habits look like right now, what your day-to-day life looks like right now. Because if you are someone who wants to make it a goal to be physically active 4 days a week, but you're already not moving most of the time, it's going to be so hard for you to build the habit of going 4 days a week because you are not even used to going 1 day. So now let's take this a step further. We need to break this down. If this is a goal of yours to become very physically active, you're ultimately starting from a place of very minimal confidence because you have not yet shown yourself that this is something that you can sustain ultimately. You have not shown yourself that you can even hop into the gym and feel confident in your body and feel confident in your ability to move your body in the ways that you want to. So starting off for the first time in the gym, you're thinking about what everyone else is doing. You're thinking that everyone else is looking at you. You're not even in the place yet of confidence. So it's going to make it so much harder for this habit to actually stick, which is going to make you feel like a failure if you're setting a goal when you're already not confident about it. I think a way to combat this and to really try to set an attainable goal for yourself is by, like I said, looking at your habits right now and slowly taking steps. So if your goal is to move 4 days a week, tell yourself that the first week you start, you're going to go to the gym once. You're going to then the next week go twice and see how you feel. And each time you are going to implement something different into this routine. So a tactic that I like to use too when working out, especially on days where I'm not feeling as confident, I like to make myself feel as confident as possible. So this looks like, for me at least, putting on an outfit that I feel good in. Wearing whatever jewelry that I want to wear that's not going to get in the way of my workout, even though that's not really a high priority for me because jewelry over no jewelry any day for me. But that being said, do whatever is going to make you feel most confident and most comfortable going into this. But that doesn't mean that it's going to feel comfortable. When you are changing something about your everyday routine, it's not going to feel comfortable. It's going to feel actually very uncomfortable because you're not used to it. Like I said, everything that's unfamiliar to you is going to feel uncomfortable. Anyways, now I want to move into some ways in which you might be self-sabotaging. So take a seat here because I might be calling you out. But this is in the most loving way possible because it's something that we all fall victim to. We all self-sabotage in so many ways. And here are just a few ways in which I've noticed in myself that I can often self-sabotage. So first things first, not respecting your own boundaries. This is a way of self-sabotaging yourself because when you set a boundary for yourself, that is you showing yourself how you need to show up for yourself. When you set a boundary, that is you telling yourself exactly how you need to show up for yourself in order for you to feel secure, in order for you to feel loved, and in order for you to feel sane, honestly. Your boundaries are something that are so important, and I have a whole episode on setting boundaries, I believe in the second season, Healing Your Inner Child. So check that episode out if you are needing a little bit of help or reassurance with setting boundaries, because that's actually one of my favorite episodes. I really do like that episode. So check that one out. But going back to what I was saying, when you're not respecting your own needs, then how the hell do you expect someone else to meet your needs? You are already self-sabotaging yourself because you are not giving yourself exactly what you told yourself you needed, right? So when you don't respect yourself, no one else is gonna respect you. When you show others that you don't even show up for yourself, why would they take the time out of their day to show up for you? Moving on. Number 2. We self-sabotage by breaking promises that we make to ourselves on the daily basis. This is something that I still continue to do. And especially I see this with working out. I will go to work and I will spend my entire day planning to come home and work out. But the second that I come home, my energy is depleted, and I let that voice in the back of my head tell me to just do nothing instead of moving my body. And I know before even making that decision how shitty it's going to make me feel, because I told myself, I spent my entire day telling myself that I was going to move my body when I got out of work, and I was going to feel great after my workout, and I would have all these endorphins, and then I would sit and I would outline an episode, or I would record, and now I feel like a piece of shit because I have no energy and I just broke a promise that I made with myself ultimately. This completely destroys your self-confidence and your self-trust. Heavy on the self-trust because you were trusting yourself your entire day to stick to this plan, and then you broke your trust by not sticking to it. And that's not to say that you shouldn't listen to your body on days where you feel very depleted and you feel like you just need to rest. That is not ever what I will tell you on this podcast. I will always tell you to listen to your body over anything. But it comes down sometimes to listening to your body over listening to your mind. Because a lot of the times, your body is physically capable of pushing you through that workout. But your mind is tired from your work day. Your mind is tired from whatever you went through that day. And that is what's taking over your thoughts right now. But you are not your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are there to teach you things about yourself and to heighten your awareness of what is going on in your physical body. So, breaking promises you made with yourself. It's one of the biggest ways we self-sabotage, honestly. And it stops you from reaching your goals when you know deep in your heart what you need to do to reach whatever outcome you want to reach, and you do the opposite. That is what makes you feel like shit. That is what makes you feel like you are furthering away from your goals. Going back to my example of setting a promise to myself to work out after work every day. Now, instead of telling myself throughout my entire day, when I get home from work, I'm going to do a HIIT workout. I don't tell myself exactly what way I want to move when I get out of work, because ultimately, I don't always have the energy to put myself through a HIIT workout after a 10-hour workday. You know what I mean? And that's completely valid. That is completely valid. I am a human being, not a human doing. I am going to feel like my energy is depleted a lot of the times, and that's okay. That's normal. So instead of telling myself I have to do a HIIT workout or whatever it is, I will just tell myself, today I want to move when I get home from work because my brain feels very cloudy right now, and I know that when I move my body, it's the best way to get out of my head, because ultimately, the best way to get out of your head is to move your body. I will stand by that. The best way to get out of your head is to move your body. So instead, I'll ask myself when I come home from work, what do I feel like doing right now? Sometimes my answer is to do a simple yoga flow, even if it's only 10 minutes. Sometimes my answer is to go on a walk because nature is really healing to me, and it gets me thinking, it clears my head, and it brings me to the highest state of presence that I could possibly reach. So sometimes I need that. And sometimes I want to feel really empowered, and I want to remind myself how strong I am, and that's when I'll go hit that high intensity interval workout, or I'll weight train, whatever it is. So that's just an example. But number 3, another way in which we might self-sabotage is over-explaining yourself. When you over-explain yourself to people, you're self-sabotaging yourself, because you're basically telling yourself that the decision that you've come to is something that requires explaining in order for you to feel secure with that decision. When in reality, if you decided to do something for yourself, you do not need anyone else's reassurance that it's the right decision. You might feel like you need it, that might make you feel a little bit better, but you cannot rely on other people to make you feel good about your decisions when they are solely for you in the end of the day. So when you over-explain yourself to someone, I honestly feel like every single time I've over-explained myself to someone, maybe it's a situation where someone has done me wrong, right? And I sit there and I explain all of the reasons why they did me wrong, all of the ways in which they treated me in a way that I didn't appreciate. It is always such a waste of my time, because that person never sees things from my perspective. I'm always hoping that they're going to understand the ways in which they fucked up and they hurt me. But in reality, most of the time when someone treats you in a way that you would never think to treat them, their brain is just wired in a way that is very different to yours. And by you explaining why they did you wrong, it's not necessarily going to make them realize that they should have treated you better. So, we go into these conversations with people and we look for clarity. I posted a TikTok about this, I believe last week, and I was talking basically about how when we are looking for clarity or closure in a conversation with someone, we're looking for that closure from them. We are in our head subconsciously looking for a certain reaction from this person to give us a sense of clarity in our situation, which is a way of self-sabotaging yourself, because you cannot control how someone reacts to what you have to say to them. In any sense of life, whatever it is, you cannot control what other people do. So when you are looking for closure in someone else, you're self-sabotaging yourself, because they might react in a way that is completely opposite to what you were looking for in the first place. So your clarity, your closure comes from you understanding your worth. It comes from you understanding that you are such a good person that you would never even think to do what they did to you to them. You would never even think to hurt them that way, because that's just not who you are. That is where your closure comes in. So you're self-sabotaging yourself when you over-explain why someone made you feel the way they made you feel. And that's not me saying that you shouldn't express your feelings. I will never tell you to suppress your feelings ever on this podcast. I don't believe that is the way to ever deal with any emotion. You never suppress your emotions. You always feel your emotions, and you vocalize whatever emotions come through in a way that feels right and feels true to you. But when you over-explain how someone else is a shitty person, that is going to get you nowhere. That's going to get you absolutely nowhere, because they're not going to just take everything you're saying to them and translate that to every aspect of their life and start their healing journey and realize that they need to better themselves. 9 times out of 10, they're not going to take your advice. They're just not. They don't care enough. They don't. So you're self-sabotaging yourself. And I know that's so hard to hear, because usually when we come from this place of over explaining ourselves to someone and trying to make them see how they hurt us, it's coming from a loving place. It's coming from a place where you just want to grow and you want them to grow and you still want them in your life for whatever reason, but you are just finding it honestly really hard to accept that this is someone you might have to leave in the past. So just know you don't owe anyone an explanation as to why you reacted the way you did to how they treated you. If you cut this person off with no explanation, you do not owe them anything. You don't owe anyone anything in life. You really don't. You really don't. You do not have to explain yourself to anyone. The way that you choose to live your life is solely yours to decide and to hold. It is up to absolutely no one else. So stop bearing the weight of everyone else's emotions and start just feeling your emotions. Stop suppressing your emotions. Think about the ways in which you feel. Something that I fall victim to is when someone's explaining to me how they feel in a situation that I'm involved with. I'm a person who always gives people the benefit of the doubt, and I always try to understand where that person is coming from before I internalize my own emotions. And sometimes this can really backfire because I will leave conversations feeling like I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say. And that is where your clarity comes in. Your clarity comes in when you say everything you want to say to this person and you don't hold back. Because the ways that we hold back is when we are looking for a specific response from this person. But if you instead go into a conversation with someone telling yourself that you just want to say everything you want to say, and then leave it as it is no matter how they take it, and you can move on with your life, that's where your closure will come in. So moving on, feeling like you're never doing enough. This is a way of self-sabotaging yourself because a lot of the times you actually are doing enough. You're actually doing so much, and because you can't take pride for your accomplishments, you can't even see what you're doing and how it is acting in alliance to your highest self, and it's getting you where you need to be. Because, a lot of the times the steps we're taking are baby steps, and it's really hard to see how they're actually influencing the bigger picture that we're working towards. And this is something that I feel like I've dealt with my entire life, and I'm still trying to kind of break through right now. I just honestly feel like I'm never doing enough, but that at the same time, I look at my days and I'm always doing something to better myself, but it's so hard to feel like I'm doing enough because I cannot take pride for my accomplishments. And I just see these things that I do every single day as tasks. I see them as something to just check off of a to-do list, but that doesn't serve me any good at the end of the day, because when my head hits the pillow, I don't feel like I did anything because I don't feel proud of anything I did. It just feels like another day to me. And I'm not going to get too into this one right now because we're already kind of running a little long on time, and this is a concept that I also do want to cover in depth in this season. So stay tuned for that. And if this is something that you've been feeling lately, please DM me. Please DM me, because this is a conversation I would love to have, especially right now. Anyways, moving on. Another way in which we self-sabotage is procrastinating. This is another concept I'm not going to get too deep in today, but really quick, procrastinating obviously is just a way of self-sabotaging, because when we're procrastinating something, it is often a task that we know we need to get done, and we are doing everything else in our power to avoid this task, which just makes us feel like shit at the end of the day. I don't really need to go in depth with that because I will do a whole episode on it. Another way in which we self-sabotage is not prioritizing our priorities. This one is huge, because when we know what we need to prioritize in order to reach a goal, and we don't prioritize the things that we know we need to do, then that's when that feeling of not doing enough is actually valid. That's when that creeps in, and it can really strike a nerve, because we know that we're not actually doing enough. We're not prioritizing the things that we know we need to do to get us to where we need to go. And this is what connects me back to one of the reasons why we self-sabotage, like I said in the beginning, where we don't believe that we are deserving of the outcome that we're working towards because we're not prioritizing our priorities. We're afraid of change, so we're not prioritizing our priorities. We're not confident in our ability to sustain whatever work we're doing, so we don't prioritize our priorities. It ultimately just comes down to not feeling competent enough to sustain whatever priority we're trying to implement in our life. You need to prioritize the things that are going to get you where you want to be. And that might take you sitting down and writing on a piece of paper, what are my priorities right now in life? What are my priorities? And then take a step back and look at what you're actually prioritizing in your life right now. And then you sit back and you look at those two lists, what you're actually prioritizing right now and what you want to be prioritizing right now. And see what aligns and what doesn't. See what ways you are prioritizing your priorities and what ways you're not. And then replace the ones that aren't working in alliance to your highest self with ones that will. Moving on, another way that we self-sabotage is by overwhelming ourselves. We put too much on our plate. We bite more than we can chew. And that kind of just brings me back to when I was explaining how we break promises that we make to ourselves. We put too much on our plate. Like I said, with the wanting to work out 4 days a week, but not being a person who works out at all. That's putting too much on your plate. You're making an unsustainable goal for yourself in this current moment. That doesn't mean that it's a goal that you can't work to make attainable, but right now in this current moment, it's not who you are, so it's going to be too hard to sustain. Another way in which we self-sabotage, which I fall guilty to, is refusing to ask for help. We often think that we were supposed to take on all of our struggles by ourselves. And that's not me saying that you should be pouring all your struggles out to other people for them to carry. They shouldn't be bearing the weight of your challenges, of your struggles. But that's not to say that the people in your life are not there to help you. Because every single person in your life that loves you, I promise you, would want nothing more but to be a helping hand for you on your journey. People actually like to help other people. They like to know that they have an impact on someone else's life. Think about it, internalize that in your own life, in your own words. When you help someone else, doesn't that give you so much gratification? Doesn't that make you feel so much purpose in your life when you feel like you are making an impact on another individual? So why would you asking for help from someone that you love, especially that you love, why would that make you a burden on them? People want and like to help others. You are not weak for asking for help. You're courageous for asking for help. You are extremely brave for asking for help, because when you ask for help, you are showing up for yourself. That is a way of showing up for yourself. When you realize that you can embody something bigger than what you are right now by getting a helping hand in the journey, that's a way of reaching the goal you want to reach. That's a way of becoming the person you want to become. And that is not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of courage, because you're doing everything you can to reach whatever prosperity you're looking to reach. Just think of it in this sense. No one has ever won a Grammy and has gotten up and given their Grammy speech and said, I would like to thank myself. They have always listed, I would like to thank my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my aunt, my uncle, every single person who helped me write this song. And you look at your favorite artist's song that they just put out. Go scroll to the end and see who it was written by. It's your favorite artist plus 5 other people you've never even heard of. There are helping hands in every single creative project in life. There are helping hands in absolutely everything you do in life. We are meant to help each other. We are not meant to isolate and to carry all of the burden of the world on our shoulders. So please reach out to people. And if you don't have anyone else to reach out to, where you just don't feel like you can be vulnerable, please DM me. My DMs are open. Last but not least, I want to mention that perfectionism is a way of self-sabotaging, because, like I said before, it's a way of setting unattainable expectations for yourself to reach. You are expecting yourself to show up, quote unquote, perfect in everything that you do, when perfectionism is not even possible in this life. Because what is actually perfect in this life is you doing everything knowing that you're doing it in the speed of when and how it's supposed to happen. That is perfection. Presence is perfection. When you are completely present in what you're doing every single day and you're not looking to be somewhere else, that is what is perfect. That is perfection in itself. That is alliance with the universe. So setting expectations for yourself every single day is sabotaging yourself, because that's when you feel like you can never take pride for your accomplishments, because nothing you ever do is good enough for yourself. You're always trying to reach something in the way that you have it set out in your mind, because you're such a creative thinker. But 9 out of 10 times, things don't go the way that you plan them to go. And that's a good thing. A lot of the times they don't go the way that they were meant to, because they went even better. They taught you things that you wouldn't have learned if they went the quote unquote perfect way that you expected them to go. Nothing is smooth sailing in life, and that's for a reason. That's because in the rough current, there are so many lessons to be learned. And with that being said, I just want to close this episode off. I really enjoyed this episode, and I'm already absolutely loving this season, because I really just feel like I'm going to be talking about so many concepts that are so near and dear to my heart and my own healing process that I'm still going on to this day, and I still will be healing for the rest of my life. But I do want to say that you will get to a point where you are healed from your traumas in life, but that's not to say that we're not always growing and evolving and expanding and learning and unlearning things and relearning things. It's a constant learning path in life. It's a constant energy flow that we go through. So stop being so hard on yourself. Please just remember that you're doing the best you can every single day, and that is all you can ask from yourself in the end. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, and if you did, please share this episode with someone that you think could hear it. Share it on your Instagram story, share it with your friends. Leave a rating on this podcast or a review, because that really helps me reach other people. And if this podcast has brought you any sense of peace, any sense of reassurance, I want to be able to reach other people and impact them the same way that's impacted you. So help me to do so by leaving the show a rating, and subscribe to Patience to Prosperity to be notified when I upload episodes every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you find your podcasts. I am really just loving this space that I'm creating, and I'm so grateful for all of you that are tuning in every Monday or throughout your week to listen to me sit on the mic and talk about things that I'm so incredibly passionate about. One thing we all have in common is that we all want to grow and we all want to support one another, and I think that's really beautiful. So thank you for being a part of this community, and I can't wait to see where it takes all of us. Stay tuned for next week's episode, because it's going to be a really fun one, and thank you again for listening. Until next week.